entity who accepts a particular type of body. Dehina, with that body. Atma Anuvardhana, which is received according to his desire and past activities. Karma B. By such material activities. Kante, he expands. Deham, another body. Ubaya, both of them. Two,
Hindi.
Avivekataha,
Avidekata.
due to ignorance.
Due to ignorance.
Translation: the living entity was received as present body because of his past fruit of activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. For the living entity's evolution through different types of bodies is conducted automatically by the laws of nature in bodies other than those of human beings. In other words, by the laws of nature, the living entity evolves from lower grades of life to human form. Because of its developed consciousness, however, the human being must understand the constitutional position of the living entity and understand why he must accept a material body. This chance is given to him by nature, but if he nonetheless acts like an animal, what is the benefit of his human life? In this life, one must select the goal of life and act accordingly. Having received instructions from the spiritual master and the Shastra, one must be sufficiently intelligent. In the human form of life, one should not remain foolish and ignorant, but must inquire about his constitutional position. This is called Atato Dhamma Jigyasa. The human psychology gives rise to many questions which various philosophers have considered and answered with various types of philosophy based upon mental concoction. This is not the way of liberation. The Vedic instructions say, Tad Vigyana Artam Sadguru Eva Vigacha. To solve the problems of life, let's accept the spiritual master. Tasmat Guru Prapadeta Jigyasa Shrey. If one is actually serious in inquiring about the solution of material existence, one must approach a bona fide guru. Tadvidi Pranipatena Prashnena Sevaya Pradeshanti Gyaninas Tatvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master by surrendering himself and rendering service. An intelligent person must inquire from the spiritual master about the goal of life. A bona fide spiritual master can answer all such questions because he has seen the real truth. Even in ordinary activities, we first consider the gain and loss and then the acts. Really, an intelligent person must consider the entire process of material existence and then act intelligently, following the directions of the bona fide spiritual master. Actually, we did this. The other day we did the same verse, but anyway. So this verse is talking about the Dehi, or the Atma, within the body. And within the body, we are subject to karmas. We do activities, and we receive reactions in the form of karma. And then we get another body due to those reactions to our activities. And this continues life after life, all under ignorance. As plants and animals, the jiva is not aware of what is happening. But as Prabhupada points out, automatically they progress to higher and higher bodies from plant to animal, from lower animal to higher animal, finally to human being. Person gets to the human being status, then he can begin to understand something because he has higher intelligence. So he can inquire, what is the meaning of life? Why do I live here? What is my goal? Of course, the human being, evolutionarily speaking, from modern anthropology and science, evolves because he's thinking of how can I survive in this world? The tiger will eat me, or the mastodon will attack me, or whatever. So he has to survive. So human being uses intelligence to survive. So one use of intelligence is to figure out how can I preserve my life, even though I'm not as strong as a tiger or an elephant or whatever. Somehow that I can use my brain to survive. So that's one use of intelligence, to survive in this material world. Strangely enough, which is not, an answer is not given by science, is that along with this intelligence to inquire about how to survive in this world and kill the tiger or whatever, the intelligence is also used in another way. And the human being becomes philosophical. And he begins to inquire, why do I exist? What is the real goal of life beyond eating and surviving? So in one sense, not necessary, because from the evolutionary point of view, all we have to do is survive and eat, and then we die. But the human being has this other ability to use his intelligence for, which is not really survival as such. Maybe it's the opposite. We get depressed, we can't find an answer, then we commit suicide. So, intelligence has this other ability to start inquiring about higher things. And we can see that this inquiry takes place among human beings, not only, probably more in ancient human beings than modern human beings. Modern human beings are not so acutely aware of saying, what is existence? Why do I exist? What is the real goal of life? They don't really ask such questions in the modern world. But we find that they did in the ancient world, so we find all these different philosophies, like Greek philosophy and other philosophies arising to talk about existence. And we see that the Vedic literature begins to answer this question. Why do we exist? What is the real goal of life? And of course, we know that many philosophies around the world try to answer this question, Plato and others. The Vedas also give a very direct answer. In fact, of all religions and philosophies, the Vedas give us a very direct answer. First, it distinguishes the Atma, or the self, from the body. With a very basic distinction. This word talks about avivekata, out of non-intelligence. We get stuck in this material world. So the opposite of avivekata is vivekata, which means with discriminating power. And discriminating what? Atma from body. So we begin to understand I'm not the body at all. So that's the very important distinction to make. And based on that, and then we make other conclusions. Surprisingly, many philosophies of the world don't get that far. Many religions don't even get that far of distinguishing Atma from body. Very, very vague ideas. But very clear in the Vedic literature. So as Prabhupada quotes here, Tato Brahma Jigyasa, we should inquire about the Brahman, the cause of everything as a human being, not talk about how can I survive in this world and support myself and my family. So the answers to the questions that human beings ask about existence and goal, etc., are answered most directly in the Vedic literature. more than other literature. The Vedic literature will give us very solid answers. Not just answers based on faith, etc., but answers which will also make common sense. They're common sense answers also. So, Tato Brahmajaya says one should inquire about Brahman. What is that Brahman? What is the source of everything? What is the goal? And then very nicely, the next sutra answer, Janmajasa Yadaha. That from which everything comes, that is this Brahman that you have to inquire about. You have to inquire about the Supreme Spirit, Brahman, Supreme Lord. So this is the goal of human life, to begin that inquiry. Who is that Lord? How do I realize that Lord? How do I act in relationship with that Lord? That is the question that the human being asks, and the Vedic literature also answers. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or the Chaitanya, when he's talking about Vedas, he says, okay, Vedas is the proof. We cannot depend on our speculation. Yes, we have to depend on our inquiry. We have to inquire, but we can't come to the answer on our own. We have to go to Scripture. That is the Vedic Scripture. And then what do the Vedas do? They give us an answer. But then they have people go and say, Vedas give answer, it's too big. 4 Vedas, 18 Puranas, Maharaj, Ramayana, 21 Smriti Shastras, 108 Pancharatras. How are we expected to learn all this? Yeah, too confusing, too many contradictory statements. So Lord Chaitanya has said, the real purpose of the Vedas is only 3: Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. Philosophical analysis of what is real, that is Sambandha, or relationship. And of course, we get all sorts of philosophies around the world trying to figure this out. And in India also, we have so many philosophers trying to figure this out. And even in the Vedas, people have different opinions, so we get these different philosophies like Samkhya, Nyaya, Karma Mimamsa, Vedanta, 6 primary darshanas to try to figure out what's what. That's called the Sambandha. Ultimately, very simple. What exists? Supreme Lord, jivas, and material world. That's what is real. What is the relationship? This Supreme Lord, or Brahman, is ultimate. He's the controller of everything. Everything's under his control, including jiva and property. So, simple. That's the Sambandha. Of course, we see that many philosophers don't even agree with this. And even they follow the Vedas, they won't agree with this. So Shankaracharya says, wrong. There is no Prakriti, there is no Jiva, there's only Brahman. Only Brahman is real. Jiva is not real. Material world Prakriti is not real. Others, of course, will agree. Kapila Sankhya philosophy does not agree. He also follows Veda, but he says no. No Supreme Lord. Only Atma and matter. Jiva and Prakriti only. No Supreme Lord. Karma Mimamsa Javini also says, don't worry about Supreme Lord. Jiva, matter. So even among Vedic philosophers who said the Vedas, they also come to different conclusions. To come to the truth, we do have to study the Vedic literature, but we have to study thoroughly. We cannot just take what we want out of the Vedas. Just like people take Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they'll take a few verses here, so they come to a funny conclusion. Because it's said there in scripture like this. Therefore it's like this. Completely wrong, but because it's there. It's out of context. So we have to get the total meaning of everything. everything out of the Vedas. So, therefore, as I said, the final conclusion is that someone is Supreme Lord Shiva's Prakriti, at least we know such. This is the Vaishnava conclusion, not the Shankaracharya conclusion, the Veda. This is the Vaishnava conclusion based on Vedanta. So once we've defined what is real, and we say, okay, the jiva is real, it's not an illusion, then we can also define, well, what's the jiva supposed to do? We're in the material world and we're eating, sleeping, marrying, offending, suffering, enjoying, and doing whatever. Is that the real goal? And surprisingly, people who study the Vedas also come to a wrong conclusion. So Jamani says the goal is to enjoy Svargaloka. That's the goal of the jiva. Jiva is real, matter is real, goal of the jiva is to enjoy Svargaloka. Of course, we have others who don't accept the Vedas, like Charvaka Muni. He says, yes, jiva is real, but what is the jiva? The jiva is your material body. What is his goal? Enjoy now as much as you can. That's the goal of life. Enjoy as much as you can now. Finished. No Atma, nothing, just body. That's the Atma. Of course, he doesn't accept the Vedic literature at all. So Jamini needs to step above that. At least he accepts the Vedas, he accepts there's an Atma there, and he goes as far below it. That's material. So, of course, then we have others. No, material world useless. Upanishads say reject the material world. You get liberated, go to Brahman. Mukti is the goal. This is, of course, Shankar's philosophy. Mukti. It's also the goal of Kapila. Mukti, Jiva, get out of the material world. The Vaishnavas, however, disagree. Mukti means what? Yes, we have to get out of the material world. Jiva has to separate himself from Prakriti. So we have a Jiva, but we also have a Supreme Lord there. So it's not just Mukti, there's also a Supreme Lord. So the goal is to establish a positive relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's the goal. And of course, it's called prema. So the goal is prema. What does that mean? Eternal bliss, eternal happiness for the jiva, free of material energy, material body, etc. That's the goal. So, that's the second thing defined. The third thing is, once we've got a goal for the jiva, how does the jiva attain that goal? Now he hasn't got prema. Now he's stuck in the material world with material body, stuck in ignorance. How does he get out of ignorance, karma, body, material body, and into the spiritual world with the spiritual body? How does it happen? So that's the process called abhidheya. What is the action we have to do to get from material world to spiritual world with prema? And the answer is bhakti yoga. Of course, people that don't agree with getting a spiritual body in the spiritual world, they think it is mukti or they think it is svargaloka, they have other processes. So they have karma yoga to get to svargaloka, or you got jnana yoga or sangha yoga to get mukti. So, according to the goal we select, we have different methods, but the highest goal is prema, and the process is bhakti yoga. So that ultimately is the conclusion of the Vedas, to define our philosophy nicely, and to set the goal, prema, and do the activity of bhakti yoga. That is the final rule of scriptures. In spite of the fact so many things are stated. So the scripture ultimately has these three subject matters, and of course different philosophers have different ideas about this, but Lord Chaitanya has also pointed out that we have to follow the conclusion based upon intelligent analysis of scripture, not blind acceptance of part of the scripture and not another part. Yeah, when we accept one part but not another part, this is called half a chicken logic. So, what is half a chicken logic? This means that there's a story of it. So thinking is very intelligent. One man has his chicken. The chicken lays eggs. He takes the eggs, he sells them in the market. And of course, if he has 2 eggs, he gets more profit. He gets 4 eggs, he makes more money. So he's making some money out of the chicken there, feeding the chicken. But then he begins to think, well, I'm making money from the chicken because the chicken lays eggs, but I have to feed the chicken, so I have to spend money also. That's not so good. I should make more profit. So the chicken is eating grains, I have to buy the grains. So I make money, I get some money, but then I have to use some money to spend on the grains, so I feed my chicken. Not a good deal. So let's make more profit. What do? Cut off the head of the chicken. So he doesn't have to eat anymore. I make more profit. So, of course, what happens? The chicken dies, no eggs, no profit at all. So half the chicken is not useful. You have a whole chicken with the mouth that eats the grains and lays the eggs. Half a chicken doesn't use it. So similarly, we take a little bit of scripture, quote that, useless, half a chicken. We have to take the whole scripture and understand what the real meaning is. So we just take Karmakanda section of Vedas and we quote that and go to Svargaloka and do yagyas, this is the goal of life, this is eternal, because this is what Karmakanda scripture says, then yeah, it's useless. We have to look at the Gyanakanda, Upasanakanda, we have to look at the Puranas, etc. We find different statements are made, opposite statements are made. When we have opposite statements, then we say why they're saying opposite things, and we have to come to, well, Vedas are perfect, so why are they saying different things? So therefore we have to come to a conclusion. We have to say why it's like this, why it's like that, come to a conclusion. So there is a whole system of logic used to finally come to a conclusion in one spot. So for the ordinary person, of course, going to the Vedas and doing all this is complicated. So that's why we do have acharyas. But even acharyas make mistakes. So Shankaracharyas come to one conclusion. Very radical conclusion. Writing his commentary on Vedanta Sutras and Upanishads. Everything is illusional, Brahman exists. But very intelligent with his use of logic. So intelligent, he can defeat the Buddhists and everybody else. Karma homosexuals, defeat everybody. He is so intelligent. But it's not the actual conclusion. So he wants to prove himself, his idea, so intelligently he can adjust things and come to the right conclusion. So this was the goal of the Vaishnavas, starting with Ramanujacharya, then Madhva, and later on our acharyas like Bhanu, to show that Shankaracharya is nice in arguing, etc., for the Vedas, but he comes to the wrong conclusion because he uses faulty logic. So yes, Brahman is superior to karma, and karma yoga, all that. Jnana is definitely superior. But one Brahman in an illusory world or illusory jiva, that is false. There is a real world, there is a real jiva, there is a supreme Lord. And the goal is not liberation, the goal is liberation. So this is established by all the Vaishnavacharyas, using some logic to defeat Shankaracharya's logic, and coming to a reasonable conclusion. So that's why we do need scripture to support whatever we do. We don't have scripture, then so many people could argue and defeat you. And so we have the backing of scripture and the backing of the acharyas who have defeated all the other arguments. Based on that, and then we can establish our goal and we can perform our practices of bhakti yoga. So we do need some knowledge. For that purpose, we have books. So Prabhupada wrote books. And the conclusions of the acharyas are there. Of course, very complicated conclusion is there, at least for us. The conclusion of all those arguments is there, so that we have scriptural support for whatever we do. The Prabhupada mentions here not only the scripture, but he also mentions the guru. So therefore, you go to the guru who can explain the meaning of scripture. The guru's not going to just have concoction like that. What does the guru do? He gives knowledge. One should approach a guru, sa guru eva vigachet. Why? Tattva-gyanartam, or knowledge of the scripture, knowledge of Supreme Lord. So what does the guru do? He gives you knowledge. Who is Supreme Lord? What is Supreme Lord? Who is Bhagavatam? What is Brahman? What is Paramana? What is material world? Guru should give you that information. So that's the function of guru. So here it doesn't mean Diksha Guru, it means guru. One who gives you the knowledge. And of course, Prabhupada goes here from Bhagavad Gita. Who is the guru here? Jnanina. Those who have knowledge. What do? They teach knowledge. Upadekshanti. They teach what? Jnana. Of course, not impersonal jnana. They teach real knowledge. Bhagavad Gita. So that's the function, the useful, practical function of guru, to teach. Anyone who teaches becomes a guru. As Prabhupada, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, one who knows Krishna, then he becomes a guru. Knowing Krishna, of course, at various levels, but at least if he statements in scripture properly, that at least that we get across. Right. In that sense, we are a guru, we are a teacher, teaching the proper knowledge. So this is how the sampradaya goes on, by transmitting the proper knowledge without distorting it. Whatever the knowledge sources gave, whatever the Goswamis gave, and later acharyas like Krishnacharya, that we present. And this way, one teaches others, and this is how the jivana is delivered. Okay.
To my understanding, the higher rasas only become discussed or talked about from the time of Madhavendra Puri. In the Madhava Sampradaya, they have only Dasya Ras, and Ramanuja. So when they talk of Krishna Prema, that is different from the Gopi, Bhava you find in our. It is just Krishna Prema developed through Dasya Ras. That's it.
Yeah. So we use the word prema, and of course maybe we're thinking about, Madhurya prema, but you could refer to any prema, even Shanta, Dasya, Sakyavasali, Madhurya, all of that. Other sampradayas, they didn't even get into the higher rasas, maybe Shanta, Dasya, that's it, because they worship Vishnu, and the relationship with Vishnu is basically Shanta or Dasya. Of course, they don't really discuss rasa as such. It's only in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. I think maybe in Vallabha, some degree in the market, the idea of rasa becomes more prominent. But obviously, they do have this idea of being a servant of Supreme Lord, as they have examples like Garuda and Hanuman and Sri Sampradaya. They are the servants of the Lord. So if one attains perfection, one gets mukti in the sense of going to Vaikuntha and serving like Hanuman or Garuda or whatever in the spiritual world. So basically it's a dasya relationship of prema. They don't even use the word prema, I don't think. I don't know what they use. Of course, affection of the Lord or whatever. But the idea is they go to the spiritual world and they serve purely with no material, sattva, rajas, tamas, and karmas and all that. So we can say it's a dasya prema.
Maharaj. I was having a very similar question on this line. Other sampradayas, like Sri Sampradaya and others, they are bona fide sampradayas, but they don't accept Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then, so they don't go to Krishna Loka, they will go to Vaikuntha Loka, means like what is the destination of those sampradayas who don't accept Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or they can go to Krishna Loka without knowing this leader, etc. Thank you.
Yeah. So in their philosophy, they will define, of course, the goal is Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, Ishvara, Parameshvara, etc. is the goal. And the highest form of that is Narayana. They do accept avatars as expansions from Narayana, like Krishna, Rama, etc. Ultimately, in Vaikuntha, the highest form is this Narayana. So their goal becomes Narayana. And they have Narayana mantras they chant. They worship the Narayana forms. The idea is they will go to Vaikuntha and serve Narayana there. So that's their goal. So it is not Krishna or anything like that. Of course, we do have in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, we do have Andal, which is quite exceptional because Andal is writing songs about the gopis and Krishna. And they actually recite these, very with great love also. So they do respect, but ultimately in their philosophy, the highest is in the spiritual world is form of Vishnu.
So the Madhava Sampradaya worship Krishna, but does that mean they're worshipping Krishna more as in the Narayana mood? Is it?
Yeah, they worship Krishna. They also have a Balaram at one of the temples also. They regard these like expansions, avatars in the material world. Ultimately, in the spiritual world that they have Vishnu, and then they have the 4 expansions in Chandravyuha, the 24 expansions. This is their concept of spiritual world. So avatars are they're like the Lord appearing in these forms in the material world. Ultimately, the form in Vaikuntha is this Vishnu form, or many of the 24 Vishnu forms.
Another question about Madhava. The story behind the Krishna deity is that he had helped a ship to come ashore.
Tilak form, and then he
Yeah.
discovered the form of Tilak.
So I want to ask about the tilak because what I heard was Madhava lifted the large piece of tilak, but on the way to Udupi it broke and one part broke off. There was a deity of Balaram which was installed on the way there somewhere, and then the other part had a deity of Krishna. Is that a bona fide understanding of?
Well, it's a traditional story. There is the Balaram deity there, near the coast, and then there's the Udupi Krishna. But that's, I think, probably they have within there some of the later verses of some of the later saints. They may glorify that. It's definitely they accept it.
One more question I ask. Why the followers of Lord Chaitanya are called Vaishnavas? Means normally why not something related to Krishna? No, why would Vishnu? Where is this word coming from? It means for all the
Technically, we're Karshnas. The followers of Krishna are Karshnas. But it could be used, being follower of Krishna as a Karshna, but the common thing for devotee is Vaishnava, so we just use that common term. But correctly, we're followers of Krishna, we can say we're Karshnas. But that term is not much used. So I believe they just took that, like even a Chaitanya term talks about the Vaishnava. So that's because it's a common term that everybody understands. So probably because of that reason they use that term.
In Russia, they call the devotees Krishnaites.
Oh, Krishnaites.
Interestingly enough, somewhere I saw recently in a conversation in Prabhupada was that he said we're Krishnaites.
Yeah,
Prabhupada himself said that.
And Nimbarakas also follow Krishna. So, Nimbarakas follow us and we follow Krishna. But we use the word Vaishnava for the way they call us.
Is Vallabha an offshoot of the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya? Vallabha.
We could say he's I think they just like we trace to Madhva, so he'll trace back to Vishnu, something like that. But I think they trace back to Shiva or something like that. It goes back to Shiva. Root or something, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, Lord Chaitanya's avatar is like a secret avatar, Gupta avatar, and we've heard that this movement is like going to go on for another 10,000 years. So when will that day be when everyone in the world knows about Lord Chaitanya?
When will that be? Well, when Krishna appeared, still not everybody became a Krishna devotee. We had all these demons fighting and whatever like that. So, of course, by prominence, we say whenever the Lord appears, then we get so many Vaishnavas. But free will of the jivas, there's some of the human beings who are more demonic won't accept. So we can expect the same for Lord Chaitanya's movement. Yes, it will increase, but it's not every single human being becomes a follower of Lord Chaitanya and chants the holy name. We're still going to have the demoniac people there, people who are opposed or whatever. So all we can hope for is a majority.
But even the demonic persons, would they like know about Lord Chaitanya?
Would they know about Lord Chaitanya, or they know about him, but they refuse not to follow him, or refuse?
Well, that's true. Even with Ranikasipu, he said, Vishnu is my enemy. He recognizes Vishnu. He says he's not a supreme lord. He's like a human being. He wants to fight with him. Ranikasipu. So demons, they may even see the Lord, but they don't really see the true form of the Lord. They just think him as a human being.
So in the golden years, or in the golden age, we will still have human beings who will not accept the Lord.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think any time there's no demons left.
Maharaj, one more question. When Srila Prabhupada say don't change anything,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of things actually which are not fundamental principles.
Yeah.
Actually need to change, you know. But some devotees, where is the line actually, how to explain this? Because sometimes devotees says they using these words of Prabhupada
Yeah.
not to change certain things, but actually they need to be changed. You know?
Yeah.
How to,
Yeah.
what is the line which kind of things can change,
Yeah.
etc.
So we have to distinguish principles from details, basically. What are the basic principles that don't change? What are the things that could be changed? We see even like with Prabhupada and Bhakti Saraswati, he says, I don't change anything. Well, yet some things are slightly changed here, slightly changed there. So you go to Gaudiya Math, you find they're doing different things there. They don't act like us, they're doing some completely different things, you know, because Prabhupada did this way, we follow that way. But it's not really significant in one sense, there's just little details of how to do different things, you know. So we have to distinguish what is a main principle, what is a detail. Of course, there'll be arguments over that also. People know arguments like that also. No, this is not a principle, we can change this or we can change that, whatever. So there could be arguments there. So we'll have to go by some authority. So ultimately the GPC is there to decide what is the principle and what is the changeable element. Otherwise, he can go on arguing forever over anything, you know. This is the principle, or this is the detail, or whatever. He's saying the four-legged principle is the detail, or is it a principle they can't change? Or you can modify it slightly, maybe this way and that way. Or, you know, so many things like a codicy, we can change it this way, Prabhupada this way, we can change it this way, we can do it this way, you know, change it a little bit one way or the other. So that is there. And if there is some confusion, then ultimately someone has to be the final authority, and that's the GBC. one example of that being controversial is, should the women get the Brahma Gayatri mantra, second initiation? So Gaudiya they don't, Prabhupada gave it. So what did Prabhupada mean by that? It's an absolute that Prabhupada said that women must get the Brahma Gayatri mantra, or he gave it to them, but it's not really necessary. So is that a principle or is that a detail? So some will argue it's a detail, and regular Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati didn't do it, none of the previous Acharyas did it. In general in India, the women don't get the Brahma Gayatri mantra, they don't take Upanayana, they don't study the Vedas, so then, it's not really necessary, whatever. So you can argue like that. Or you say Prabhupada did it, so why we change it? So Prabhupada established it, so we shouldn't change it. So you can argue back and forth. Is it a detail or is it a principle? Of course, many of the things are details. In our initiation, for instance, we do a sacrifice at first initiation. Where did it come from? There is no historical reference for it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati didn't do a fire sacrifice at first initiation. No. So what is it? Should we do it or not do it? It's a detail, in other words. So should we do it or not do it? Of course, Prabhupada didn't always do it, maybe also. I said, okay, you do a fire sacrifice later on sometime. But he gave by the mail, he gave for initiation, etc., gave a name. So is it a detail or not? Of course, we can go even further. Is giving a name a detail or not? As I pointed out last night, in one sense it is a detail because Chaitanya didn't get a name, Balarama didn't get a name, and so many Gaudiyas didn't get names from their guru, their Diksha guru. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did it, Prabhupada did it, so it could be a detail in one sense. And even without a name, you could get Diksha, theoretically. So it gave us a detail in one sense, but Prabhupada did certain things, so you generally don't want to change unless there is some reason for changing. So we could argue, okay, fire sacrifice is a detail, Prabhupada did it, we shouldn't change, but then if the fire sacrifice becomes so elaborate and people are starting researching the Vedas and introducing all sorts of Vedic rituals into the sacrifice of this and make it a 5-hour sacrifice for first initiation or something like that, and only certain people qualified to do that sacrifice or whatever, then it kind of gets out of hand or whatever, so maybe you just stop it completely. So last night I said, okay, we have first initiation and we've got a great emphasis upon it, and then the Diksha Guru becomes the all in all for the disciples, so maybe that's a problem in itself because Shiksha and Diksha should be equal, and we're emphasizing only this one personality called a Diksha Guru, but actually, as I said this morning, the teaching is what is happening. The one who knowledge gives teaching, he is the Guru, but that isn't emphasized, so then maybe we shouldn't put so much emphasis on the first initiation. And one of the big things about first initiation is sacrifice, which isn't even there in the Gaudiya tradition at all. So should we have it or not? Maybe we take it out. There wouldn't be such an emphasis upon first initiation as being such a big thing, and that's the all in all for you. So we made a lesser ceremony, as I said previously. Gaudiya Sampradaya Diksha itself was a very simple ceremony. Just leave the mantra finished, was it? But now it's a huge ceremony, and the Guru gets some extra, emphasis because of that. So, do we want to keep it like that, or maybe we have to simplify? Well, these are things that could be discussed.
And the first initiation also is microphone. Also
And the first initiation is also something that comes from Srila Prabhupada, or
Yes.
Not other acharyas, they have
Well,
first and second.
Well, I mentioned last night that Bhaktisiddhanta had something called Nam Nam. They didn't call it Diksha, first initiation. There's only one Diksha, second, where you get the mantra. First is not called initiation, it's called Nam Nam. But it's very similar to what Prabhupada we call first initiation, where you vow to chant a little bit or whatever, maybe 4 rounds or whatever, follow regulated principles if you can, and they may give you a name. But it wasn't a very formal ceremony, and no sacrifice. That was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. With Prabhupada, it becomes a little more elaborate, and then after Prabhupada, it becomes more elaborate. So, We don't exactly do what Prabhupada did, we actually expanded on that. So if you look at the initiation ceremonies now, first initiation is quite different from what Prabhupada did. It's much more elaborate. In one sense, we changed. We increased it. And with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, it was much less. So that's why the Gaudiya Math, the people, they say, you go there, they say, oh, you initiated. And they say, I didn't initiate it. Just give them a name, finish. So technically it's not initiation in the Gaudiya Math. That's not initiation. Give you a name, tell you to chant Krishna. No, it's not initiation. So they said, we didn't initiate it. We just gave them a name.
Hare Krishna Maharaj says, Diksha and Shiksha, are they both of them the same level, Maharaj?
Well, that's described in the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The equal respect. Of course, obviously, as I mentioned last night, we also respect according to their level of advancement. So you get a Diksha level on this level, we can have a Shiksha Guru on this level. So technically, you should actually give more respect to the Shiksha Guru. Could be the opposite, of course. The Diksha Guru would be at this level, Shiksha Guru would be down here. Then you would give more respect to the Diksha Guru. But in general, more or less, they would function on equal respect. They're like God or whatever, because one is giving the mantra, other is giving knowledge, so they respect like God.
So that means the Siksha and the Diksha gurus should be, what we're asking is, should they be of the same level? Like the Diksha is, let's say, sannyasi, and the Siksha, should he or she also be like in a renounced order?
Oh, doesn't matter. No. The Diksha Guru could be anybody. It could be a Grihastha, Brahmachari, a sannyasi, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Vaishnava, Brahma, Sudra, Chandala, doesn't matter. In one sense, as long as they know Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Either Guru, either one, Diksha or Shiksha, in our sampradaya. Okay. Oh.
So talking on this point of Diksha and Shiksha Guru, sometimes the very idea of who is a Shiksha Guru doesn't seem to be very clear. So who exactly is a Shiksha?
Obviously, anyone who gives Shiksha is like a Shiksha Guru in one sense, but in a more practical sense, one who is very prominently giving teachings, and especially higher teachings, he would be considered to be a Shiksha Guru. So in Bhakti Sandarbha, that Jiva Goswami called one guru the Sravana Guru. So you first hear from a devotee, you get inspiration, guidance, and begin practicing. He would be your Sravana Guru or your Shiksha Guru. And of course, you get many Shiksha Gurus. Later on, you take Diksha. But then, as I said, the real defining factor of Diksha is to get your deity mantra, which is the second initiation. So that would be your Diksha Guru as such. He may also teach, and of course he should teach, the meaning of the Diksha mantra and how to do deity worship. That's the special Upadesh or instruction of the Diksha Guru as functioning as a Diksha Guru. Of course, you can also do just general philosophical instructions as a Shiksha Guru as well. But we can always get the Shiksha from other persons, and they could be treated on an equal level. So that's apart from people who are just getting general instructions from everybody, or new bhakti gives instructions to that. Of course, we're not talking about that kind of Shiksha. It's also a Shiksha in a sense, but we're talking about those more elevated. We trace our line as a Shiksha Guru line, so we're not tracing to the new bhakta, to the new bhakta, to the new bhakta. We're tracing with very prominent persons or significant devotees who are giving teachings. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srimad Bhanu Swami Maharaj ki Even Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai Gaurav Prema.
Hare